A week after winning a fourth title in 8 years, fans of Golden State Warriors are now busying themselves with talking about where their leader, Wardell Steph Curry, ranks in the GOAT debate. ESPN analyst Kendrick Perkins had predicted Curry would not win another NBA championship, but the chef cooked up a meal of swallow your words to serve to Perk. It was also said Curry needed a Finals MVP crown to even be considered among the all-time greats like Jordan, like LeBron, like Kobe. What did Jordan do in his time? The numbers don't tell the story, but let's use some numbers just the same. You can see those. 14-time an All-Star, All-NBA second team, 10-time All-NBA first team. What is not on that stat sheet is how do you win the scoring title and get Defensive Player of the Year in the same year? It's insane how good Michael Jeffrey Jordan was. What about Kobe? They say he was a carbon copy of MJ. 5 NBA titles, you know. He won 3 of them in concert with the big man Shaquille O'Neal. 18-time NBA All-Star, and he was just from another planet. What about the man who's still going on, who's defying father time day in, day out? What about LeBron James, 4-time NBA champion, 4-time Finals MVP, like Kobe, straight out of high school into the league, and he was bambaying with the big boys as if he was there forever. He is a freak of nature, one of the greatest sportsmen of all time. What about Curry? These are his accolades. Now a 4-time champion, has a final MVP crown to his name, Western Conference Finals MVP. Of course, you know he's the greatest shooter in the history of basketball. That is not in question. And he's been 8-time an All-Star from the 13 seasons that he's played in the NBA. So, with those things to his name and in his locker, does Wardell Steph Curry even enter the conversation about the greatest of all time? To discuss that, we're being joined by our NBA analyst, our expert, Aleister Albert. Aleister, good to see you. A quick turnaround for you. Let's talk about this issue now that Lance put on the table last week. I think we should give him first crack, Aleister. Let's go, Lance.
Well, I'll just start right at the point that is being discussed. Does he make top 10 all time?
Yeah, he does make the top 10 for me now. And I think when the NBA 75 list came out, he was 16th or something like that. But with this accolade coming in now, for me, I think he kind of moves into that position or into the top 10. But I would kind of just pull this back a little bit, because I think when you're having this kind of discussion, there's a lot of nuance that you have to take into account. You know, are we talking about just talent? Are we talking about career and accolades? Or are we talking about, you know, stats on their own? When you're talking about stats, of course, you know, this guy has kind of amassed quite a number of records in terms of shooting and everything, you know, and that kind of revolutionized the game. And that's kind of where we see the game is going right now in the future. You know, does that make him the GOAT, or in that discussion of the GOAT? When you just look at the accolades and everything, he kind of pales in comparison to guys like Michael Jordan and Kobe and that sort of stuff. So yeah, there's I think when you really have to take a lot of different things into account when you talk about that. And then, of course, if you look at him in his position, is he even in the top 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 in his position? You know, there's a lot of things that you really need to kind of think about. But when you just thinking about overall career, I'd say he's entered the top 10 right now, because leading your team to a championship and now getting the Finals MVP, I think that has a lot to say about him and what he's been able to do.
Yeah, Aleister, one of the issues that will be complicated when we get into a discussion like this is you're talking about generations of players and decades of players. And as you just alluded to, there are many, many players in NBA history with statistics in many ways comparable and even surpassing what Steph Curry has done. So you start to look at some of the nuances of the game and the sort of impact that a player may have. And a lot has been said about Steph Curry and how he has revolutionized the shooting game in the NBA and the way he handles three-point shooting. He has sort of turned the corner with the NBA and just given the NBA a new platform as far as how people shoot and how people want to shoot and how people aspire to shoot. Is this something that would weigh heavily in the ranking system?
I think it does, and I think that kind of brings a lot of why I think he's kind of jumped a few levels up the ladder right now for me as well. In addition to, of course, now having his 4th championship and getting that finals MVP, I think that revolutionizing of the game in terms of what he's been able to do and make it very more accessible and a lot more relatable for everyone around the world who wants to be in the NBA. You know, I think that has a lot to say about, you know, what he's been able to do in the game. Not everyone could be 7'2", 350 pounds like Shaquille O'Neal, or have like a crazy skyhook like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or jump as Michael Jordan did. But yeah, what everyone is seeing right now is this, you know, guy he's still a very good height, 6'2", 6'3", but you know, he's shooting the ball in a way that, you know, I think not many people could definitely achieve that, but with a lot of practice and everything, one could think that they could be like that. And I think with that, taking that into account and him being an icon in that regard, and the accolades that he's achieved throughout his career, and comparing them to many other people, I think that kind of brings him up into that discussion for sure.
All right, so I'm going to give away one of my sources now, not to mind. I want my viewers to be informed as I am. So Fadeaway World gives me, I'm sure you know that site, it gives me the stats that you don't normally see the regular news houses churning out. I don't want those garbage stats. I want real analytics that you can use to look at the game, and that's what they give you. So they had this pyramid made up of tiers, and they had a tier 5 to a tier 1. They've added Steph Curry to the list. I'm not sure I agree, but here's what they have. At tier 5, they have Oscar Robertson and Jerry West. So tier 5 is at the base of the pyramid, Aleister. Work with me here. They have Oscar Robertson and Jerry West at the base. Then they have, in tier 5, Hakeem Olajuwon. They have Kevin Durant. They have tier 3, Shaq, Tim Duncan, Bird, Bill Russell, and Steph in tier 3. Tier 2, they have LeBron, they have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, they have Magic, and they have Kobe. In fact, tier 2 is all Lakers, yeah? LeBron, Kareem, Magic, and Kobe. And tier 1, I don't need to tell you who's at tier 1. God himself is at tier 1. No! Oscar Robertson and Jerry West, Hakeem Olajuwon, below, and Kevin Durant, below Steph Curry? No, again, I say that Curry is the greatest shooter the game has ever seen. There's always someone, Aleister, you know this very well, there's always someone who plays the game, but someone knows someone who's better than him, some nephew or some cousin or some brother or somebody that person used to play on the playground with who was better than them, but they didn't get to the NBA. We all know the story of Pee Wee Kirkland and how he scored 100 in the pen and he was the greatest to never really establish an NBA career and all that jazz.
Yeah, yeah? There's a story in Barbados that Sir Garfield saw was his brother was better than he was. Yeah, what?
When we were children, Aleister, they told us that Pele had a brother who was better than him. So everybody, there's some relative. This is one man, you've never heard it said, oh, no, Steph used to play with somebody on the playground who was better than him shooting. You've never even heard that. Undisputed greatest shooter all time. But top 10 player all time, Aleister. And to hear a man as learned in the basketball as you entertain Whitaker's argument, oh, you're bordering on blasphemy today, Aleister.
But before you continue, before you respond, Aleister, I didn't say that, you know. I said it's a discussion that we can have. I didn't suggest that he was.
Aleister, to hear you patronize. Oh, no, not patronize. Patronize. That's the one I'm looking for. To hear you patronize Lance Whitaker with this discussion, Aleister, I'm wondering about you now, my friend. Steph Curry, top 10 all time, all round, all things considered, all occasions, all adversities, all adversaries. Steph Curry, top 10 all time. What is the world coming to?
Let's look at it. So
yes, let's look at it.
Of course.
Let's look at it.
This is why I wanted to have the discussion.
Let's look at it, my friend.
Yeah.
Fadeaway World has had their tiers and whatever they've been able to do in terms of ranking and everything. There's a little bit questionable placement there from what I could see. But when I look at Steph, and okay, so let's go for it. 2 scoring championships, 4 rings, 2 MVPs, 1 Finals MVP, 8 All-Star, all NBA, 8 All-Star appearances. He's just in his 13th year in the league. Steph probably has maybe about another 5 years in him, let's say. So, but let's forget about those potential years. When I look at the top 10, and what I've had to do, I kind of had to really think about what my new top 10 would be to kind of bring him into there. The only person that has come out of that top 10, when you look at the ESPN rankings and what I've kind of done right now, I've taken out Oscar Robertson. Now, I know that might be very blasphemous for many people from the old time because, this is a guy, again, who had, tremendous stats, Mr. Triple-Double, the first guy to do that in the league, won a championship himself and everything. But when you look at Oscar Robertson's stats compared to Steph, no scoring championship. He has 1 ring, 1 MVP, no Finals MVP, All NBA, okay, 11 of them, 12 All-Star appearances. Now, when we have the conversation, we have to take into account, like we say, the evolution of the game, the skill of the players that we're talking about. Now, if you kind of put Steph and Oscar Robertson together skill-wise, there's probably an advantage to Steph. When you talk about shooting, we know there's no argument there. But dribbling skills, passing skills, and everything, Steph is quite a really good player himself. So when you take everything into account, I think the 4 championships compared to 1 for Big O and everything, it's a legitimate conversation. Now I have him 10. But, I was a little bit, juggling with that a little bit because when I think of Shaq, Shaq was like the most dominant player we've ever seen. Of course, yes, there's Kareem, but then there's Shaq. How do you kind of play that against each other? Shaq only has been an All-NBA player, 14 times, all NBA defense 3 times alone for a guy who's 7'2", 350 pounds.
Aleister, hold on, my friend. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Before this season, at the start of this 2021-2022 NBA season that was, would you have said to someone, looking them squarely in the eye, that Wardell Steph Curry is a better player than Kevin Durant?
No.
So why are we talking?
That's when I talk about That's when I talk about the nuances that we're talking about the nuances. If you're talking about talent, I don't have him in that sort of way because you're talking about an overall player skill profile and everything, shot ability, scoring ability and everything. Steph Curry is kind of one-dimensional because he's 3-pointers. But when you look at a whole career and you look at the accolades that have been amassed, you have to kind of take that into account. And I'm looking at the career.
I hear you, my friend. And your respect is large in these parts. I mean, you come to Jamaica, you won't have to buy your own beers. Yeah. That's how much respect we have for you. But hear me now. Mm-hmm. Would it be... Look, Steph Curry is in my nice guy top 10. He's one of the nicest human beings the Lord has blessed us with. He's a gentleman thoroughly, yeah? He is, I think, a fair candidate for an... accomplished top 10, most accomplished top 10 in terms of the stats and everything. But again, that's what we're talking about. The top 10 all time, you're talking about top 10 players. Who would, of the players that I just mentioned, I figured this was about 50, the pyramid of about 15. Mm-hmm. Those players, the majority of those I called, would have been stars in a collection of the best players and the best teams. Would have been standout. They would have been the best players if you put the best players and the best teams together.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Steph would have been the best player. Well, I'm sure he wouldn't have been. He would have been the best shooter on any team from any era. But I'm just saying, if you ask me, of all the NBA players you would have seen in your time watching basketball, and I started following it closely in the early 90s in high school to this day, even from then till now, is Steph Curry one of the 10 best players you've ever seen play the game? And then you marry it with the things that he would have accomplished. Is Steph Curry a better player than Allen Iverson? No, but you wouldn't put Allen Iverson in any top 10 because he doesn't have the accomplishments. Steph has the accomplishments. So at least you can frame an argument around whether or not he deserves it, which is what Lance has done.
Yes.
But I would say, Aleister, I hope I can get your agreement on this.
Yeah.
The top 10 most accomplished players all time in the NBA, I wouldn't be averse to putting him in there. But the top 10 best players in the NBA when skill and accomplishment and impact and force of will are concerned, I'm sorry, he's not.
But before we go though, Aleister, what you need to ask George is that why is he on the opposite end of a website that he believes in. This website that he credited just now with being the website that he goes to
for information
because he doesn't follow the other foolish ones, tells him that Steph Curry is there and he doesn't support.
But I said two things, Aleister. I said one, this pyramid is about 15, but about 12, 13 players. Yeah, that's one. So it's not top 10. And the other thing, I go to them for data so I can then find information. So there you. We didn't answer the question.
You believe in the website, though, George?
I believe in the data. We didn't answer the question, Aleister. Our producer is chasing us out. You did most accomplished top 10, but the other top 10, not yet.
No, and I want to be very clear about it as we wrap up. Most accomplished top 10 is what I'm talking about. This is a guy I think who has amassed a career that you have that rivals, quite a lot of people and is in that top 10. When you're talking about skill and overall players, that's a totally different conversation. It's the same thing for the top 5, let's say, point guards. You can't rank Steph Curry top 3 because he's just not a point guard. You know what I'm saying. But when you look at career accolades and everything, that's where you kind of come in. So just want to be clear. Top 10 for me, career accolades, looking at the career in totality. When you're talking about skill, that's a totally different conversation.
The GOAT debate is strenuous enough. I can't manage a top 10 debate. I'm just certain.
And that's why it's so entertaining.
I'm just certain who the best player has ever been. I'm certain of that. I'm not sure about the rest. Aleister, we thank you very much. All the best.
All right, guys. See you later.
Good. Break time.
Thank you for watching SportsMax on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay informed.